A new ban on what's been called weaponized social media could be on the horizon in New Zealand. Lawmakers are discussing ways to hold social media sites responsible for their choices and their roles in mass shootings. This comes after 50 people were killed at 2 mosques last month, allegedly by self-declared white nationalists.
While it's unclear what these laws would be like, in New Zealand, it could become the first country to actually make this type of reform turn it into a law, I guess.
Right. So joining us now to explain what this could all mean for the rest of the world is CNET executive editor Roger Chang. What's up, Roger?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So first tell us, what is weaponized social media? What does that mean?
Weaponized social media, as you saw with New Zealand, was the idea of executing something like this attack in New Zealand and broadcasting it, really serving to push an agenda using social media means.
So then, I mean, how do you regulate this? Because obviously part of the challenge is it's free speech, right, to a certain degree?
Right. I think that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
We don't really know what these regulations are going to look like. On one extreme side, you've got China with sort of a real clampdown on how things are broadcast. But at least New Zealand and Australia believe there's some sort of middle ground between that and sort of the unfettered access that these companies have had for basically since existence.
It's interesting, when I think about the idea of free speech and social media and using it to weaponize, there's free speech in this country. We have broadcast news. The advent of broadcast news, from radio to television, the FCC regulated what we could and what we couldn't say on television and broadcast across the airwaves. There was a regulation. You couldn't lie. You couldn't, right? We were doing a public service. I know that the rules are not the same, but can you apply some of the ideas that were first implemented in the age of mass media back in the 40s and 50s to what's happening in social media?
I mean, I think that's what some of these countries outside of the U.S. are doing. You could see a willingness outside, overseas, to regulate some of these companies, which are American companies, where there is a bit more sensitivity on clamping down on these basically local businesses and their ability to make money. But you're seeing it in Europe, you're seeing it now with Australia and New Zealand. There's definitely a willingness to clamp down and offer those kinds of regulations that we have seen in more traditional broadcast form.
Because so my question is, I believe that in Germany that they have rules against display of Nazi symbols, right?
Yep.
And in Canada, there's a law against speech that incites hate.
Okay. So in those cases of those two countries, for example, if you are broadcasting through the use of social media images that are Nazi imagery, or in Canada's case, speech that incites violence, can they clamp down on you?
I think that's going to be the big question for a social network as large as Facebook, with all the content, YouTube, with content being pushed out there, just massive amounts. Facebook and Google say they're hiring tens of thousands of people to combat and to monitor this stuff, but that's really fighting a fire with a squirt gun, right?
Yeah, and I mean, here's the debate, right? Is the person who's writing this hate speech responsible for it, or the platform that is the venue for it?
And what happens if you forward it or you share it?
Right. What happens if it's coming from a country that doesn't regulate this sort of speech and it's perfectly legal?
And the argument is that right now, at least from Facebook and Google's perspective, is the platform should be agnostic. It's just a platform. It shouldn't be regulated. But I think the tenor is changing. People are starting to see that these companies need to be held responsible for the content on that platform.
Yeah, because of the impact. I mean, it could lead to people's deaths.
Right. So what is Facebook saying? I mean, are lawmakers in New Zealand talking to Facebook executives, and what are they saying to Facebook, and what is Mark Zuckerberg saying to them?
It's still really early to say exactly what the conversations are, what the details of those conversations are, but clearly with Zuckerberg offering an editorial saying that he's open to regulations, that is, there's definitely a willingness. I think these tech companies realize that regulations across the board are coming. They want to take part in steering what they look like, so they're to its own benefit, but it's clear that I think most tech industry understands that regulations and some clampdown, some form of clampdown will be coming.
I think this is so fascinating. I mean, we're watching the evolution of an industry that's really not that old, if you want to call it an industry. Yeah, I guess the social media industry. And quite rapidly, they're having to evolve under some extreme circumstances. Roger, thank you so much.